We've got some pretty incredible ideas on the way.
We have so many ideas.
We're going to talk about 20 years of World of Warcraft. I want to know, when was the first time you played the game?
Well, I was working on a competing MMO at the time. I was working on EverQuest and heard about this World of Warcraft game coming from Blizzard. And I thought, well, fine, I'll try it. I was completely captivated. So I was in the beta. And I've been playing ever since. So in 2000, it might have been 2004 early, I think. But yeah, I was hooked and I've been playing ever since. And to have the opportunity and the gift to work on this team, you can't write that story.
And how about you, Maria?
I also was working for another studio at the time, and we were also working on an MMO. And one of the designers on our team got into the beta, and we all took turns playing and checking it out. And I was also very interested in seeing some of the improvements that were made and how it really took some of the best of the MMOs that were already out there. So I was hooked, and my husband and I started playing right away.
Now, 20 years is a long time. As you say, the game has changed a lot. I want to ask you about how you think the fan base has changed as well, in terms of what kind of people are now playing World of Warcraft and how's that different from 20 years ago?
Certainly at the time in 2004, even when we think back to how we all got internet, it was, even by global standards, sort of a niche-y space to be in an MMO. And over time, World of Warcraft blew that wide open and really invited a lot of players into the game. And I would say, by and large, we were in our 20s, 30s for the most part. And now we're seeing, as the game has gone on for 20 years, it's now cross-generational. We've got parents with kids, they're playing with their kids. I play with my stepson. And so we're now looking at how do we address, all of these generations and all the various ways that our players consume game content and the players that don't play WoW. So we're constantly looking at the industry itself. And as well as our own player base, to see what is resonating with them. And we've gone through quite a few changes, particularly in the past 2 years, to start addressing that. We have better access to data, and we look at the behavior of players in general. And now we are trying to serve them, particularly those players who are underserved by, our estimation. And now we are creating content for them in a very World of Warcraft way, lots of whimsy and challenge and variety.
If I could just jump in there too, I remember back in the day that it was a pretty time-consuming thing. If you wanted to play with your friends, you spent a lot of time making sure that you were working hard to stay, current and had all the best stuff. And it was a hardcore thing to be an MMO player. You spent a lot of time. And over the years, we've increasingly made the game more accessible. It's been about making sure that everyone can play and everyone feels welcome, making it very inclusive. So now we do things like with our new Delves feature that we're adding in the War Within. We're offering these 10, 15-minute snippets of activity that you can do, when you have a little bit of time. Maybe you can't sit down and do a raid with your friends right now, but you can pop in the game, you put the kid down for a nap, or you're taking a study break and you can hop in, play 15 minutes, achieve something, get a good reward, and pop back and do what you're doing. So I think that's a big change for us design-wise. It's no longer a massive commitment every time you log in. It's intended to be accessible.
I will say, I'm going to add to that, as much as things changed, much of it stays the same. So, and speaking particularly about World of Warcraft Classic. So in Classic, the people who want to live in that experience that does require that time and that investment and a lot more reliance socially to get things done. They are both overwhelmingly popular. From my point of view, it's a very vibrant community we work with, and they're different. Our classic community is very different from our modern community. And to Maria's point, we had heard the feedback from the community is, they don't all have those hours to spend. And you'll see that as we go forward, like Maria said, in the features that we put in our new expansions in the modern game.
It's interesting that you mention having options for people who don't want to necessarily put as much time into it. And we're hearing a lot more about how attention is really the big thing people are trying to get. I'm wondering if you see your competitors these days quite differently, whereas in the past it might be other MMOs. Is it now things like Netflix, maybe? Is it, other streaming services? What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. Some of what we are doing now, and, we are in a period of evolution where for the first time ever, we announced our next 3 expansions. We announced that last November at our BlizzCon event. And that is part of, creating some expectations around our future, that we are here for it. This is going to take some time for this storyline to play out. And that is looking broadly and going beyond games. You mentioned Netflix. When we talk about something, players like to have some stability in what to expect. And so revealing that was a big change for us. And again, we look everywhere in every genre. We look at mobile. We all play mobile games too. And are there elements there that are a good fit for our game? Or game modes that are session based. So we released a game mode called Plunderstorm that was sort of a World of Warcraft version of a PvEVP BR. And we're continuing to do that. We're really in a period of evolution and exploration right now.
And Maria, from a design point of view, has anything in the game changed to kind of address those new competitors that you might be up against?
I think our push toward accessibility and making sure that people feel welcome, trying to assure that they have interesting things to do. We've always served a very broad audience. We have different segments of our player base. There's people who really love PvP. There's people who really love battle pets. There's people who really love professions. And they're happy to just go in the game and spend time doing the things that they love. And we want to make sure that, they're happy, that they're enjoying the content that we're putting in, that we're continuing to hear what they're asking for. So I think it's less in this case about our competitors and more about what our players are telling us that they're interested in and that they'd like to see.
And there's always pressure to grow if you can. I'm interested to know, who doesn't play World of Warcraft at the moment who you want to play, and why do you think they don't play it right now?
I think, for Warcraft, for us broadly as a franchise, we want everyone to play. We think we have a very appealing, approachable, whimsical IP that certainly serves. It's our spin on high fantasy that over 20 years has resonated with people, and we suspect it will continue to resonate as we move forward. So we are always looking to find ways, where we can expand our audience, and yeah, ultimately that challenge will never end, because we want to share World of Warcraft with everyone around the world. Globally, especially our European audience is absolutely fundamental to our success. It's one of the reasons, we were really thrilled to be able to go back, and visit London and spend time with creators and press. Because being global is very meaningful, and given recent announcements, it's really important not just for World of Warcraft but Blizzard too. We consider ourselves global,
and I want to talk about that in a sec. But I think one reason why maybe some people don't like the idea of an MMO or online gaming at all, and this isn't a World of Warcraft specific thing, is it potentially being an intimidating or toxic place. And I'm wondering, are there any ways that World of Warcraft in particular is trying to address that, change that? And do you have concerns are things going in the right direction, basically?
So, any online experience runs the risk of encountering, someone who's having a bad day. And we know there are people that like to make other people unhappy. We do have a lot of functionality in the game that allows you to block people so that you don't need to interact with them. You can opt to ignore them entirely. We also have, good reporting structure and good methods of watching for problematic players, toxic players. That's not to say that, there's always cases where somebody, manages to be annoying. But we also have some very, very welcoming players. We have the ability for players to opt in to help others. They have to have played the game for a certain amount of time and reach certain achievements, but then they can be part of a channel where they can answer questions. And we have a tremendous number of players that opt to do that enjoy doing that want to help. We've also tried to make our new player experience as friendly as possible and accessible. We kind of separate those new players. We put them in their own area with other new players to start and teach them about the mechanics, so they don't immediately get dumped into the game and just, left to the mercy of whatever's around them. So we give them some time to learn before we bring them into their capital city, and make sure that they've had an opportunity to enjoy the game for a bit before, necessarily encountering an experienced player who, for whatever reason, as I said, might have a bad day or something. The other nice thing is that the core of the game is not PvP, it's PvE, it's cooperative. And so I think when you're in a PvP environment, there tends to be a fair bit of trash talk and that kind of side of things. And in our game, that's opt-in. You have to choose to PvP. You have to choose to opt into that environment. So I think we've tried really hard to keep things pleasant. It's not to say we don't have more work to do. There's always more work to do. But I think as we look at the design and we look at ways to reduce that online toxicity, this is a subject we talk about and consider.
I will say that it's very. Particularly for me, it's very important to create safe spaces in our game. And we have people on the team who are dedicated to exploring that. We look at other games and other places where that does exist, but that's very much a focus for our future, as is the approachability of the game. To your point, 20 years in, the game can be overwhelming. And we have a live team now, and the team is going to be focused on that going forward. How do we make it, fun, accessible, and not feeling like you're, getting drowned by 20 years of content, in the first 20 minutes, hour that you play. But it's a focus for our future.
Now, of course, the big change is you're now part of the Microsoft family, if that's not too glib to say, but part of Microsoft. Has it changed the roadmap, what's coming up, or any way that we can expect to see World of Warcraft operating?
So far, no. We're still getting to know each other a bit. One of the really cool things that happened or has happened in the time we've been together is being able to talk with some of the other studios. So we had a meeting with the Elder Scrolls Online team to talk about, their experiences and what's happening with their game and what's working for them, and learning from them, as well as with the Minecraft team. So it's very rare, special benefit of being part of a team or Xbox where there's so many studios that we can share knowledge. We're really excited about that. But so far, our goal is to focus on, the World Soul Saga, getting more within out the door to hopefully players who will have a lot of fun. And then with Classic as well, we've got Classic Cataclysm right around the corner. And, we've got their full support to do everything we've got to do to deliver for our audience.
A fun example is for our arachnophobia mode that we were putting in. We had access to Microsoft's data for all their other games, so we could look into what solutions other games used before we decided on our solution.
You're talking to other studios. Does this also potentially mean maybe some crossovers in the future, some things people might not have expected?
I have nothing to announce right now. We're all optimistic. Who knows? It's early days.
Would you want to see it, though? like in a dream world?
It's such a broad question. It's an interesting thing to think about for sure.
Fair enough. Early days.
Yeah.
20 years is a lot of history. Not necessarily everything will have been what you would have done if you were in charge at the time. I'm wondering, is there anything from World of Warcraft's 20-year history where if you could cast a spell now and remove it from history, you would do that?
Oh, Lord. I'm not sure. Honestly, I feel everything the game has achieved, it's all got benefits in some way. I think one of the biggest learnings that we've had was gaps in content for an MMO is not good. And we saw that in particular with Shadowlands. And that was a transition, to work from home during COVID, very challenging for the team. And we saw the effect of that on the player base with pretty significant gaps in releases. And our reaction to that was, we put out content about every 8 weeks now. And that's sort of, the recipe for the success we've had in the past year or so. All of our charts and graphs for World of Warcraft have never looked like they do now. So I think we're a pretty humble team by and large. And we know that did not work well. And we are always looking to improve in all areas. But, Shadowlands in and of itself was a very complex, beautiful expansion. It's just we didn't have enough of it. And so with their current expansion with Dragonflight and Into War Within, we're targeting 8 weeks. Every 8 weeks, we have content updates to be able to serve our audience in the various ways they play. So part of that, too, is we're not just doing, the end game hardcore content. But we are looking at all the ways our players play to invite them back, every 8 weeks. And so far, it's doing really well.
If I could just wave my magic wand and make an adjustment, I think, back when we were making the game, back in those days, I think representation wasn't always the best. I think the image of some of our character races might not be entirely wonderful, with the lens of today. At the time, different lens. So I think I'd probably wave my magic wand there and see if I could improve on that. In the recent years, we've had the benefit of lectures and experts coming to speak to us about subjects before we build content that might be offensive to other groups. And that has been wonderful for the team. It really helps the artists and the designers. So I think if I did that would be my thing.
What are you most excited about for the next 20 years of World of Warcraft?
We talk about it a lot. And to be able to sort of unleash this boundless creativity. And when I say, we really do want to find ways to have everyone play World of Warcraft. And we've got some pretty incredible ideas on the way that are really focused around the community itself. So we certainly do well creating content we love ourselves, but we're looking a lot farther and a lot farther ahead to feel what is it going to be like to be a citizen of Azeroth in our world, and what could that mean for any type of player. And that's sort of one of our guiding principles right now. And super excited, as part of Microsoft, we feel like there's some pretty boundless potential on the way.
I would say that we just have so many stories to tell, and it's just been such a joy to have opportunity to do that. And the idea of having, 20 more years to do that is so exciting. I mean, we have so many ideas. The team is so excited. And we just can't wait to share those stories with everyone. So I think that's the exciting part for me is just, I've played the game since it was in beta, and I love the world, and so the opportunity to make the stories for the world over the next 20 years is really thrilling.
So more than enough stories to fill 20 years.
Easily.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.